You're listening to Package Your Genius, a conversation designed to give you clarity on your calling and serve as a catalyst for your career. I'm your host, Amanda Miller Littlejohn. Welcome back to another episode of Package Your Genius, where we are working to give you clarity around your calling and serve as a catalyst for your career. And I wanted to take today to talk about why I am so passionate about visibility. If you follow me on social media, if you followed me for any length of time, you have likely heard that word come out of my mouth or seen me share it online ad nauseum, and you may wonder, why do I care so much about you becoming visible? And I wanted to peel back the layers a little bit today and really share how I approach visibility and why it's important to me, how this whole personal branding thing emerged for me as a professional, and why I'm so passionate about it. So I started my career wanting to be a creative writer. I studied English in school and had no idea of what I wanted to do with that major and with my skills professionally. I just knew I loved books and writing and reading. And so that was the major I chose. And I remember getting near the end towards graduation and it dawning on me that I needed to figure out a career path for myself. And so I started to explore how my English skills could be used if I wasn't going to become a creative writer immediately, right? So I remember my mom had mentioned me becoming a teacher, and I loved language, reading, literature, but I knew teaching wasn't for me, even though ironically, now I teach all the time. But I think elementary education was the thing that I was not interested in doing. So I was fortunate to land an internship that allowed me to explore my communication skills and uncover this whole other side of myself that involved packaging and promotion. And at the same time, I realized that, yes, I wanted to write creatively, and I wrote some short stories and submitted them to some creative writing contests and won some creative writing awards, but at the same time also landed a journalism fellowship that really put me on the path to do what I'm doing today, because I learned long form narrative journalism, how to write stories and interview a source and write, 10,000 and 30,000 words about that particular person and their narrative and the issue. And I thought that would be my path for some time, but on the one hand, I knew that the media industry was changing, and I entered it in this kind of weird time. And eventually I did land a great newspaper job, but I was laid off from that job during the Great Recession. And when I emerged from that and picked myself up and said, well, what can I do with my skills? How can I support myself, support my family with what I know to do? Communications and writing and helping businesses and people who really needed to share their message, that became the focus of my work. And so over the years, it has transformed and it has looked like a lot of different things. But at the core of what I do is I help people translate who they are, what they have to share, what they have to offer. I help them translate that into a way that others can understand it. So that has looked like me sitting with someone and hearing what they have to say and then generating words for a marketing document or a website. That has looked really recently like me having a session with a client and generating remarks for a speech. And A lot of times that looks like me listening to clients and students and pulling out what I feel to be really powerful potential media segments and then pitching the press on their behalf or helping them pitch the press themselves so they can share that story with a wider audience. But at the root of it all is just translation, right? Like, I'm not the genius. You're the genius. You have the genius ideas. You have the mission, the message, the company. You have the impact that you're trying to make. And I'm here to simply help you package that so that more people can understand what you're talking about. And so anyway, over the years, I've harped and harped and harped on why it's so important for us to get out there and become visible, to share our messages. And I was just thinking a little earlier this week, I talk so much about why we should do this, but I don't know that I've ever really explained why I think it's important. Why do I think visibility is important anyway? Why do I think your message needs to be shared? Who cares, essentially, right? And I wanted to share today 3 reasons why you need to become more visible, even if, or especially if, that has been something that's been uncomfortable for you and you haven't been willing to do it in the past. So wanted to share these just to give you more insight into why I do this work and why I'm so passionate about visibility and why I believe so wholeheartedly in the power that it has to change the world. So number 1, the first reason why you've got to share your message more widely is, I think, the obvious. Sharing your message more widely positions you as the expert in other people's minds. It positions you as the expert in other people's minds. Now, you're already doing the work. You're already the expert. You're already the genius. But when you make yourself more visible, whether that is speaking on stages or doing media interviews or generating content like this podcast, when you make yourself more visible and visible to more people than the individuals that you work with on a one-on-one basis or your team at work, it helps other people. The people in your life who already know you personally, the people in your network who know you professionally, the people who have yet to meet you who might potentially hire you, and even you. It does something to your own perception of yourself when you make yourself more visible, say, for instance, by doing a television segment. So essentially, when you make yourself more visible, you enhance the perception of how valuable you are. I'm going to say that again. When you make yourself more visible, you enhance the perception of how valuable you are. Now, it's not that you suddenly became more valuable. It's simply that other people perceive you to be more valuable. They put you on a top shelf. They think of you as, a little untouchable. Okay, she's been elevated to this national media platform, or he's been elevated to this stage in front of 1,000 people. He must really know what he's talking about. She must really be good at what she does. And so people take you more seriously. I remember when I did my first television interview many years ago, I was so nervous and I knew my stuff. I knew my tips. I had my points. And I was ready to deliver the segment, but I don't think I was ready for how that segment would be received, not just by strangers who could potentially hire me in the future, which was really my target, right? Like, I wanted to get in front of more people so that I could grow my business and share my message with new people who didn't know me. But I was really surprised at how the people in my own network got excited about me and remarked on the segment and seemed to have a different perception of me as a professional, even though I thought they already knew who I was. I thought they already knew what I did. But for some reason, them seeing me on television really solidified in their minds that I am the expert and that I'm really good at what I do. Because here I have been chosen, or I've been given this platform that everyone doesn't get. And so that was really powerful to be taken more seriously by the people in my network. And for those of you who say that you don't think people would pay for your services, or people are always trying to pick your brain, or you have so many people in your network who know that you're good at what you do, and so they kind of come at you sideways, or they try to hit you in the DMs to get your advice or your counsel. Media and visibility, when people can see that there are others, there's a big pool of people who now have access to you, or who now know about you. You're not the best kept secret anymore. It makes the people in your life think twice about trying to get things for free from you. And so it's a distancing mechanism, at least mentally, because it takes you from being this smart person who's going to help me out, or who I can ask for advice, to an expert who has been put on platforms and is now visible to so many more people than just, me and our circle of colleagues and friends. So that's just another tip for you if you are struggling with selling your services, especially to people in your network. I have friends and colleagues who reach out to me all the time for my help, and they pay me. So, it can be done, and it's not weird. It's not weird for them to hire me and pay me and for me to provide the service. A lot goes into what I do and what I deliver to my clients. And I think one part of the people in my personal life, the people who already know me and can access me, one part of them understanding my value is that I have made myself very visible, and they know that they are not the only people who know about me. So that's number one. Making yourself visible enhances the perception of how valuable you are. Number two, another reason why visibility is so important for us as professionals, and just for us as personal people, whatever a personal person is. Sharing stretches you and demolishes mental limits. Again, when you share and make yourself more visible on a bigger stage, on a bigger platform, in front of a larger audience, it really stretches you and stretches your perception of who you are and what you can do. So you've heard that quote that the mind, once stretched by a new idea, can never regain the same dimensions, right? And that quote has been attributed to Ralph Waldo Emerson, to Albert Einstein, and a few other people. So I will say someone really smart said that, and I totally believe it, but it makes me think of one of my academy students who shared recently in our Facebook group about a big opportunity she had to stand on a stage, a national speaking opportunity, to share about the work that she'd been doing. And in the past, she would have given that opportunity up, or kind of punted it to another professional who she thought was more capable. But instead, she owned the fact that she was the best person to stand up and speak and share, and she did that. And yes, it was a little nerve-wracking. Yes, it was a little crazy to do something different, but she did it. And now that she has done that, she saw how capable she was. She was stretched, but she rose to meet the occasion. She delivered, right? So in the future, never again will an opportunity come across her desk that is tailor-made for her that she will punt to another professional if she's available. Never again will she shy away from that spotlight because she thinks she's not good enough. She thinks her message isn't strong enough. She thinks that she will not be well received, because now she's done it and she has the experience, and she can look back and say, I've conquered that. I've climbed that mountain, right? I've knocked down that wall, and it's no longer a barrier for me. And that's one of the things that visibility really helps you do. I remember before I spoke at all or did media, and the perception that I had of myself and of where I could go and what I could do professionally was so much smaller, until I had some of those bigger opportunities and was able to share from stages and in front of large audiences, or on national media platforms, or be interviewed by international press. And once I did it, it was like, oh, okay. Huh. Yeah. Huh. Okay. Oh, those are the questions you're asking? Oh, okay. Okay, that's how long it takes. Okay, yeah, all right. And whereas before I may have felt intimidated by sharing my message in a larger way, once I had the opportunity to actually do it, my whole perception of who I was changed and I stepped into it. I was more willing to step into this bigger vision of my skills, gifts, and talents. And I think even if you are uncomfortable with lots of people knowing you and seeing your face and hearing your message, one part of becoming more visible is just the exercise of letting yourself be seen. That exercise is powerful because even though you tell yourself you are so uncomfortable, when you are able to step into it and do it, you prove some things to yourself just in the act of being willing. And so I think before I became accustomed to sharing on stages, I would have said that I don't like to present, or I get nervous, or I get stage fright. But after you've presented a few times and you get the hang of it, it's just like with anything else. Practice makes perfect. And you really, you build your confidence, I guess is what I'm saying, by making yourself more visible. Even though it takes confidence to be visible, actually pushing yourself to be visible builds your confidence in this kind of weird way, right? So like, you think you need the confidence to be visible, but really by being visible, you become more confident because you see yourself and other people see you. Which brings me to my third reason why visibility is so key. Sharing your message, it really feels amazing. And when you can share it with a wider audience, you have a greater chance of connecting with the people who were meant to hear your message. You have a greater chance of connecting with your tribe. If you only talk to 5 people, maybe one person resonates with what you have to share. But if you talk to 5 million people, who knows, there might be 100,000 or even 1 million people who resonate with what you have to share, and that can be helped by what you have to share. And so the impact is much greater, but it's powerful because you stay true to yourself, essentially. So author Tara Mohr of Playing Big, who I interviewed on the podcast several episodes ago, she says that playing big, her concept of playing big, especially for women, is to be more loyal to your dreams than your fears. And I love that quote. I love that because to me, that's what visibility, making yourself visible, is too. So being visible is just being loyal to the message that was put inside of you, the message that only you have to share, the gift that only you have to give, right? By being visible, you're willing to show up and share that unique thing that only you can share. And when you do that, you feel like more of yourself. You feel closer to yourself. And I know that sounds weird, that sharing yourself with more people makes you feel closer to yourself, but it's really true. And one of my other Academy students shared this amazing passage in the Facebook group this week that I read it and I said, I have to share that on the podcast because it's so powerful and it speaks so clearly and so passionately and so eloquently to why I am so passionate about visibility. And it is from a speech. I'm not sure if it's a speech or an essay. Yes, it was a speech that Audre Lorde delivered around visibility. And it's so powerful. So I'm going to read it to you. So again, this is Audre Lorde. These are not my words. I only dream to one day write so eloquently. So she says, I have come to believe over and over again that what is most important to me must be spoken, made verbal and shared, even at the risk of having it bruised or misunderstood. That the speaking profits me beyond any other effect. In becoming forcibly and essentially aware of my mortality and of what I wished and wanted for my life, however short it might be, Priorities and omissions became strongly etched in a merciless light. And what I most regretted were my silences. Of what had I ever been afraid? To question or to speak as I believed could have meant pain or death. But we all hurt in so many different ways, all the time, and pain will either change or end. Death, on the other hand, is the final silence, and that might be coming quickly now without regard for whether I had ever spoken what needed to be said, or had only betrayed myself into small silences while I planned someday to speak, or waited for someone else's words. I was going to die if not sooner than later, whether or not I had ever spoken myself. My silences had not protected me. Your silence will not protect you. What are the words you do not yet have? What do you need to say? What are the tyrannies you swallow day by day in attempt to make your own until you will sicken and die of them, still in silence? Perhaps for some of you here today, I am the face of one of your fears because I am a woman, because I am Black, because I am lesbian, because I am myself, a Black woman, warrior, poet, doing my work. Come to ask you, are you doing yours? And of course, I am afraid because the transformation of silence into language and action is an act of self-revelation, and that always seems fraught with danger. But my daughter, when I told her of our topic and my difficulty with it, said, "Tell them about how you're never really a whole person if you remain silent, because there's always that one little piece inside you that wants to be spoken out. And if you keep ignoring it, it gets madder and madder and hotter. And if you don't speak it out one day, it will just up and punch you in the mouth from the inside." In the cause of silence, each of us draws the face of her own fear. Fear of contempt, of censure, of some judgment or recognition, of challenge, of annihilation. But most of all, I think, we fear the visibility without which we cannot truly live. But most of all, I think we fear the visibility without which we cannot truly live. And that visibility, which makes us most vulnerable, is that which also is the source of our greatest strength, because the machine will try to grind you into dust anyway. Whether or not we speak, we can sit in our corners mute forever while our sisters and ourselves are wasted, while our children are distorted and destroyed, while our earth is poisoned. We can sit in our safe corners, mute as bottles, and we will still be no less afraid. Wow, that was so powerful. And I just wanted to thank my student, Alyssa, for sharing that in our group, because it is, wow. So those are my 3 reasons why I think that it is so important for us to be visible. Again, number 1, sharing positions you as the expert in other people's mind, and it enhances the perception of how valuable you are. Number 2, sharing stretches you and demolishes your mental limits. Once you break down a wall, once you see yourself and are seen, you can never go back. And number 3, sharing more widely actually helps you get closer to yourself. And for me, I am dogged about visibility because it helps combat erasure. We have to tell our stories. I firmly believe this. We have to tell our stories lest history be revised. And you know what I'm talking about if you are from any marginalized identity, if you identify as a woman or gay, bisexual, transgender, African American, Hispanic, Latino, whatever you identify with, if it is not the dominant culture, you understand that it requires visibility from the marginalized. if we don't want to have our stories erased. I'm also dogged about visibility because traditionally only certain people have been allowed to be seen. So for me, visibility is about justice, equality, and parity. And I'm dogged about visibility because I know how painful it is to never be seen for who you are and what you have to offer. I felt like that as a child, that no one really understood me and what I had to offer, and they never really understood the whole me. So some parts of it, oh, she's smart, or oh, she's creative, oh, she's kind, but I never really felt like people understood the whole me. And so as a professional, I have been given a gift of storytelling and promotion and packaging. And as I mentioned before, translating people's messages so they can be understood. And one of the most powerful ways that I know of to turn the volume up on your message and help you be seen and heard more widely is media. And to that end, I am hosting an exciting and free virtual conference on Wednesday, March 6th. I am so excited about this because this is an opportunity to share what it takes for you to actually get the media exposure and those bigger opportunities that can expand your brand, your platform, your audience, and get you in front of more people. I've invited some journalist friends, a communications exec, a top podcaster, like working journalists, people who are accepting pitches and review pitches every day. I've invited them to come on and share what works now in 2019, what works to get an editor's attention, what works to get a spot on a top podcast, right? And for those of you who are authors or coaches, you know how powerful podcasts can be to connect with your tribe. And so on Wednesday, March 6th, I am hosting a virtual conference called Maximum Exposure. And let me tell you, it is going to be good. Now, the conference is free. It is so valuable, but I'm making it free because I want you all to show up. I want you to learn, and I want you to really empower yourselves and equip yourselves with the real information to make this happen. As I've talked to a few of my journalist friends who are participating, so many people botch this whole pitch process when they are trying to get in front of the media and land media interviews or media segments. And so, as I told you before, one of my passions is translation. I know I have a gift for helping people take what's inside of them and put it in a package or a format that others can understand. And one of those audiences that I'm often translating to is the media. So I'll be sharing nuggets on how to package your story and what you really need to create a message that is spreadable and that the media will latch on to. But also, I've invited these friends, these working journalists, these experts who have all reviewed pitches. Some of them are contributors to multiple sites. So we have a CBS reporter, CBS New York, and NBC's Know Your Value. We have a former NBC editor. We have my colleague James, who is a communications exec, and he has become a go-to quotable expert, which is what he'll be sharing. But he's become a go-to quotable expert and helped so many executives do that too. And so he's been featured and had his expertise featured in the Wall Street Journal and Ad Age and all of these amazing publications. So he's going to share the process of how you go about connecting with editors so that they call on you when the topic that you are the expert on is in the news. And we have Stephen Hart of the Trailblazers FM podcast, where he interviews amazing African Americans in business. And so what does it take to be considered a great guest? Like, he gets tons of pitches and he has to deny a lot of those. But as a top rated iTunes podcast, he can't let everyone on. But how do you make yourself competitive? How do you make yourself exciting to a Trailblazers FM, right? Like, what do you send in the email? What do you say? How do you introduce yourself? How do you follow up? We're going to be talking about all of that. And how do you put yourself in position so that the thing that you're most passionate about, the message that you really have to share, has a chance, right? Because if we don't get the visibility to these ideas and to these messages, they'll die with us. And I really want to empower more of us this year to take our messages more widely, because they deserve to be heard, seen, and shared. So I hope you'll join me next week, Wednesday, March 6th, for Maximum Exposure, the free virtual conference. I'm holding it on Crowdcast, which is a video platform, and we'll be doing Q&A. So if you have your webcam set up, we may be able to bring you on to ask questions. But it's going to be a powerful day, y'all. Like, you know me, if you have done any webinars or if you've participated in Package Genius Academy, you know that I like to go all in when it comes to content, and this is going to be no exception. It's going to be amazing. So, like, register. Get your slot. I will put the link to register in the show notes, and I look forward to seeing you, and I look forward to you getting maximum exposure. See you next week.